Most sales teams lose the deal before they even get to the pitch. They ask the wrong questions, they focus on selling instead of understanding, and they don't uncover what actually drives a buyer to say yes. Today we're sitting down with Senior VP of Sales at QVinci, Joe Barbano, who has built and scaled sales teams that took startups from $8 million to $40 million, and he knows exactly what separates the best from the rest. In this episode, we break down the brutal truth about why most outbound strategies fail, the game-changing discovery techniques that turn casual conversations into closed deals, and how AI is quietly reshaping the future of sales, whether you're ready or not. If you're in sales, running a company, or just trying to master the psychology of decision-making, this one's for you. So let's get into it.
So I'm Joe Barbano. I currently act as Senior Vice President of Sales at a company called QVinci in Austin, Texas. So in my current role, I oversee a few different sales teams, basically any customer facing on the sales side, which ranges from sales development representatives to account executives to solution consultants and a little bit in the revenue operations side of things as well. But that's my current role here at QVinci.
Awesome. And could you walk us through kind of how you got to that point and sort of what's interested you in this role specifically and the future of your company as well?
Yeah, good question, obviously. So how I got to this point? Well, so actually I started my career in recruiting, interestingly enough. That was back in Boston, which is where I went after I graduated from college. And I worked for an external recruiter specialized in mostly software developers. So, companies would hire us as a recruiting firm to go and find software development talent for them. It was considered a sales role. You learn a lot about how to manage the relationship from the standpoint of your clients, but also the people that you're recruiting. You want to kind of act on behalf of both parties to, bridge the gap, so to speak. But, a good bit of that role is sales. And I realized really quickly, I wanted to go into sales. It's fun. It's high energy. There's a lot of wins that you put up that feel really good. And if you're an extrovert like I am, if you like being on the phones and talking to people, it's not a bad way to go. So I transitioned that to being an account executive at a very small company in Boston. I actually interviewed for the position of SDR, but I asked if I could interview for account executive, which usually requires a bit more experience, but this was a brand new company and they were willing to take a risk on someone like me who didn't have software sales experience. Anyway, without getting too into the weeds, that company was called Accelerate. It was a good company. They were headquartered in Seattle, but the person who hired me left to be the vice president of customer success at a startup called Datadog, also in Boston. Datadog was an incredible company. Datadog now is public. When I joined, there were probably, 60 or 70 employees. They were probably doing 15 million in revenue. I think I was the 7th account executive hired, but it was a great product. And Datadog was the place where I would say I really cut my teeth on being a strategic and thoughtful account executive representing my company's product from a sales capacity. So over the course of 2.5 years, we watched that company grow from a small, scrappy startup to this really big company doing, by the time I left 2.5 years later, maybe even 3 years, doing 150 million, I think, in sales and well on its way to an IPO. So over the course of time at Datadog, you see the success, you see the amazing growth trajectory that you go on while being at a software startup, which is why a lot of people like this space, is that you can join a rocket ship sometimes. But I also got to experience, in some ways, the dilution of the lead pool when you have a lot of, venture capitalist backed funding, private equity backed funding, in which you go from a sales team of, say, 7 to a sales team of 60 in a very short period of time. So that has its challenges, that, any growing has its pains. But I would say what really stuck out to me, my time at Datadog, was towards the end of my time there, they brought on a chief revenue officer. His name was Dan Fugier, very smart guy who took what I would say is this great product with a sales team who was hungry and wanted to sell, but made it into a very rigid sales playbook with better qualification methodology. They brought in a term called MEDDIC. I won't get too into the details now, but that's simply a qualification methodology, and introduced kind of to me of what sales could be, this more strategic way of thinking about qualifying and having defined stages and putting yourself in a position to win your potential customer's business.
Mhm.
Regardless, I moved to Austin, Texas, because I wanted to do that process all over again, but at an earlier stage even, and take more of a risk on a company. So I joined a company called Bright Pearl, which is where I spent the majority of the last 8 years of my life. I started as an account executive, and it was a very small team. It was myself, a solution consultant, and a VP of sales, and that was pretty much it. But Brightpearl was what you would call an ERP system. It stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. What it really is kind of the operational management system for a business. And we were specific to omni-channel e-commerce companies. When I got there, it was a small team. It was primarily located in the UK, but they were growing the US sales team. And, we took it from just a few of us, and over a few short years, took what was probably an $8 million company to like a $30 or $40 million company. And what was nice about that from my perspective is I was able to ride the wave up with the organization. So I'd like to think in small part, I contributed to that. But when you start early at a small company like that has growth potential, you can ride the wave. That wave for me looked like senior account executive, team lead, and then managing the account executives, and then becoming a director in which you oversee the account executives, but also the other sales teams, solution consultants, sales development reps, etc. And not only that, but during that time, we acquired a company called Inventory Planner. That was an ancillary product that we ingested a sales team, and seeing how much you can impact quickly was a great piece of experience for me. But then we also ourselves got acquired after that in 2022. This would have been January. And going through that process of acquisition of a small scrappy startup to being acquired by a very large organization, Sage in our case, which was incredible. It was like a 12x multiple on our revenue. So, our yearly revenue, multiply that by 12, and that was our exit valuation, which is awesome. But then being able to see things from the perspective of a very large company and being ingested into that culture, finding out that I probably have a lot more comfort and fun in the startup world, which is what led me to QVinci. Joined a company that was kind of where Bright Pearl was when I joined it in 2017, with just a great reason to think we can grow. Happy to get into all that. But do it from the perspective of a senior vice president, and hopefully do it all over again and go through a really successful growth startup.
And how can you? It seems like you're good at picking the companies that have growth potential. Like, is there a way that you can kind of tell if you're entering into a good company that has a lot of potential?
Certainly. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's really important when selecting a place that you want to work at. I think growth potential is everything. And there's a few factors that come into play when I look at a company. The basic things are: what's your total addressable market? What's your current penetration into that addressable market? What are your lead channels? Do you have a big marketing team that generates marketing driven leads? Do you have partner channels in which you work with partners that generate maybe good leads that usually have a higher capacity to close at a better rate? Is your sales team creating their own opportunities? So all those are factors to look at just from a basic economic standpoint of what the growth potential is. Outside of that, what's the financial position of the company? What's the cap table like right now? Are they making investment decisions in the interest of growing the organization, or is it a little bit more conservative by nature? And then finally, probably the biggest thing that I personally look at is what I call the moat around the product. When I say a moat, what is that protective layer that makes it so that you are a needed resource in whatever market you sell to? For QVinci, for instance, I identified QVinci and quickly learned they've got 15 patents with the US Patent Office for functionality that is critical to our customer base. Sometimes you'll find a company that has a lot of patents, but it's for little stuff. It's not that important. It doesn't directly impact maybe the biggest pain point in the market that your product's trying to sell. With QVinci, however, it is the primary reason people pick up the phone and call us, that we have actual differentiated technology that by law, nobody else to do. And it gives us a massive leg up on our competition. Your deals close at a higher rate. You can monetize your customers more, and they're happier. They stay with you longer. There's a mathematics to everything. There's a basic economics, and then there's, hey, what's the differentiating factor of your product? That's what I really look out for when I try to select an organization that's going to grow.
Okay. You haven't been with QVinci for super long, right?
About 9 months.
So what's been the transition like from when you started to now? Has there been a lot of change that you've seen happen, or how's that going?
You could say that, yes. In fact, I would say the theme that my team knows is kind of our theme for this year and for this upcoming calendar year, and the rest of the company knows from the sales team, is change. It is the year of change. And in large part, it's because it's a small company and you enact a lot of scrappy processes and people wear many hats. And they sometimes take on the roles of not just what other companies maybe just one person is doing, but they take on like 4 or 5 different roles. And that's not necessarily scalable. So, the biggest thing that I need to do coming in here is change our structure, culture, processes to get it to a place where it can scale, such that if we invest a whole lot more into driving lots of leads to the sales teams, we've got the infrastructure and the process to be able to drive those to close with reasonably good rates of closure, such that it makes economic sense for this, thing to scale.
Yeah.
So I really look at that change on a 3-axis triangle, and that is process. So what's your playbook look like? Have you set your sales stages? How do your sales reps talk about the product? What's the process they bring a prospect through? Do they discover first and then demo, proposal review, etc.? So that's the playbook. Number 2 is culture. It's like, what's the culture of the team? By culture, I don't mean free bagels on Friday or, team lunches and things like that. It's more about, what are the values as a team that we want to live by, that we believe if we follow those values, we'll be able to attain our goal. And those values cannot be defined by the sales leader. That needs to be defined by the team that you hire, the team that's there, because they need to believe in them and agree, hey, these are the things that we are going to enact, such that if we do them, we'll be successful. And then structure is the last one. It's like, do you have the right team structure? And I'll give you an instance of how we change things. A single salesperson on the team when I started would have worn the hat of SDR, account executive, solution consultant, account manager, and partner manager. When you do all those things at once, you've got a lot of competing priorities and certain things get missed. So the number one thing I did was, we're going to restructure the sales team such that there are defined roles with defined outcomes, metric-driven outcomes, such that if everyone hits those metric-driven outcomes, we're going to achieve a pretty good result in the back end of it. So yeah, it's been a wild year of change, fun year of change. Change can be really good, but change can also be hard. But without a doubt, that has been the theme of our team thus far.
Awesome. And what's the biggest challenge then? Because you're kind of laying the foundation right now, having the infrastructure ready to support bigger marketing campaigns and things coming up. So what's kind of your big challenge you're tackling right now?
Well, I would say, looking at it holistically, a lot of the change that I do within the sales team, we're expecting to have a better rate of closure. We're expecting to say, okay, if I get 5 new business opportunities, whereas maybe before we closed 2, now we'll close 3. Or, I'm using very raw numbers.
Yeah.
So that's great. If I can create this team that's scalable, that can take on more leads, we can start to hit numbers. Usually when you scale a sales team, the question is, can lead generation keep up? Because you hire salespeople who have a number to hit, they've got a target, and they're really hungry. Their paycheck is in large part a product of being able to hit that target. So you got to make sure that they're fed, and you especially need to make sure that they're fed with leads and ability to work the deals when they're new, because they need those at bats. The only way you can get good at selling a new piece of technology, no matter how great you have been in the past, is you need at bats with whatever that new technology is to understand the nuance of it and how to qualify and work the deal and so forth. So, the challenge becomes, you can spend a certain amount on marketing leads to a certain point, but as you grow, as you want to increase the sales team target, you got to increase the number of leads. And there is a law of diminishing returns as you scale up. A dollar takes you less far at every stage of growth that you have usually as an organization. So the question always is, can you sustain the growth on the lead generation side so as to monetize that big investment that you just made in your sales team to grow that infrastructure, which I think we've got a great plan for. I think QVinci is doing a phenomenal job putting ourselves in that position to do that. But I know firsthand that is always a challenge with growing, especially high growth sales teams, is, can you feed the mouth of the beast? Can you Can you make good on that investment and give the team the at-bats that they desperately need to hit their targets?
Right. So then if you could share a little bit about what tactics do you use for lead generation? Like, are you guys more paid ads, or I don't know, like cold outreach? What kind of channels are you guys focusing on?
So there's a few, and just to know, I'm involved in those conversations, but of course that doesn't quite doesn't report to me or anything. Now I'm a beneficiary of it, so I like to be involved.
Yeah.
But there's essentially three channels through which you can generate lead flow. It's marketing efforts, so called it inbound; outbound efforts, so that's the sales team going out and trying to cold call or email various accounts that we think are likely to want to use our service. And then there's partner. So other vendors within our ideal customer profile inside of our addressable market that maybe have access to introducing us into those conversations that could partner with us. When I came to QVinci, it was really just inbound. It was marketing. And within that bucket of marketing, there were things like, Google ads. There are things like organic website visits. There are trade shows that we go to. We're at one right now. I've got some of my sales team at a trade show going to try to get good leads. We do a lot of webinars, right? We'll schedule a lot of webinars, thought leadership webinars that our ideal customer profiles will want to join. So there's lots of ways to generate leads with varying success of how well those convert through the funnel. Sometimes those leads are really warm and we know we're likely to bring that to an opportunity. Sometimes they're really cold and we need to kind of create the opportunity. But that's inbound, right? I think there's a lot that we're doing to grow the amount of marketing channels there. That will take time. You got to learn those different channels, and maybe we need to do more search engine optimization. That's a big initiative. We're trying to create blog posts on our website as we speak that have good search engine optimization results that we want to go out and capture. But then there's a lot you can do outside of that too, right? One of my big initiatives is starting a partnership program where we want to actively select good partners that we think can bring us into deals that will tend to close at a higher rate. We
Right.
want to incentivize those partners to bring us into those conversations. And then there's outbound, right? Because as a salesperson, you can't pick what marketing leads you get. You're kind of subject to those marketing leads, and those can be really good or they can be not so good sometimes.
Yeah.
But with outbound efforts, you can select. I think we can work really, really well with this maybe very large account that would get me to, a third of my number for the year if I can land it. So those are the sort of initiatives that we want to progress to in terms of catching up the lead generation that we need.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I know working with some software companies, a common challenge that I hear is educating clients on the value of their product because especially if the product itself has a lot of competition, it's hard to kind of differentiate and get yourself in front of people in a way that stands out. I mean, it seems like you have a really great product, so I don't know if you have as much of this problem, but how do you approach communicating value to your clients or potential customers and building trust with them that you'll be able to deliver on the promise?
Great question. And, I don't care how good your product is, those things that you just mentioned will always be first and foremost the most important aspect of being successful in sales. And it comes down to primarily one thing, and that is having really good discovery.
Mm-hmm.
A deal is won and lost. I usually can tell you if a deal is going to close or not by how well the discovery was run. Because the only way to be consultative, the only way to earn trust is to start by asking really good probing questions and getting your head wrapped around what the potential client's situation is, what their current challenges are by not having whatever technology that they want. What's the impact of those challenges? So for QVinci, we do multi-entity business intelligence. Someone might come to us and have issues just simply capturing financial data. Okay, well, that's a challenge, right? I want to know as a salesperson, what's the impact of the challenge? Is it taking you time to cobble together data from a variety of different sources? By not having that data, are you not able to make sound business decisions? The question is not just what's the challenge, it's what's the impact of that challenge. And then can you quantify that impact? Is there a dollars and cents justification for going out and buying a new software? And that's a challenge more so with B2B sales because you're not dealing with a single person who can make the decision unilaterally all the time. You need to have that person sometimes make a business justification, present to their superior, present to a board, whatever it might be. So it really starts with understanding the pain, the impact of that pain, and can we quantify that? And all of a sudden you start to develop a business case, you act as a consultant. Flip side of that coin, people don't buy software for functionality. I always tell my sales team they buy software for desired outcomes, whether those be personal outcomes, might be personal. You might be speaking to a person at a company that wants to save time because they're working nights and weekends and they're missing time with their family. And a personal win for them is being able to spend more time with the family. That's a real personal win that sometimes your software can provide. Or more often the case, it's a business outcome, right? A business outcome that they might want, they have an initiative that they want to produce that initiative. They need the software to collect data, to report on data, whatever it may be. So if you can not just understand what it is they want from a functionality standpoint, but what's the end goal? What's the outcome of what you're trying to deliver? All of a sudden, you can expand the conversation and help them in more ways than you originally anticipated. That's how you become not just a salesperson, but a consultant that is earning the trust. And with trust comes influence. And you can start to influence their ability to decide on what criteria are important to them when evaluating a software. You can influence them and start to talk about what makes your software different. And instead of them kind of putting the guardrails up and like, you're just a salesperson, if you've developed trust, they'll actually listen to you and sometimes take your recommendations. But it all starts with discovery. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You got to listen more than you speak. You got to ask the right questions. And we do a whole podcast episode on that, I'm sure. But that's where it all starts from my perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing I've noticed in the same realm of like challenge would be even just getting in front of a client to have that discovery. Let's say their product is a bit more personalized to the company. Like maybe they have to learn a bit about what problems that company has in order to really be able to pitch them a solution. How would you approach, or what perspective do you have on getting in front of these people and getting enough trust to even book this sort of discovery call? Because like I get like you have to be able to communicate your value through the product and the outcomes. But if there's other competitors out there, how do you even get your foot in that door to like be able to do the discovery itself?
Yeah, good question. So I think there's really 2 things that come to mind when you ask that question. And the first is, when you ask that, are you more so thinking about it from the standpoint of, I'm a salesperson, I want to go out and generate some interest by myself? Or are you more so, hey, maybe we've already got interest, I've got time with a prospect, but then how do I ensure that most of this time is spent asking questions and learning? Because I guess the answer is probably
Yeah,
different in either scenario.
I was thinking more like let's say you're a smaller startup
Mhm.
and you're just getting clients now and you have a really good product market fit, you have good value. But maybe the actual outcome you have, a lot of people are promising. And when you try to approach a prospect, because at the start, let's say you don't have a lot of capital, maybe you're relying on more like cold outreach, lower
Mhm.
cost. How do you, because like people are sort of, now they're kind of used to getting pitched. They're getting a lot of emails from lots of people. Maybe it's harder to stand out in the inbox, or maybe you have like other cold outreach methods. But how do you actually get people's attention in a way to get them to agree to even speak to you about discovery, let's say?
Yeah, good question. There's a few ways, and that really kind of hits more on like, how do you outbound prospect to generate interest? How do you develop the messaging from a marketing standpoint? Depending on where you're at in a business, it really starts with the customer. If you're not running interviews with customers that you land that look like the type of customer you really want, right? Because especially newer businesses, you might not even know exactly what your sweet spot is. You might
Right.
start by having a product, an idea, something that you want to bring to market. Eventually, sometime in the future, you will have a better representation of your ideal customer profile then than you do now. And the easiest way to find that out is, as you start to land customers, interview your customer. Why'd you buy our product? What was the outcome that you were looking to gather from this? What made you select us versus our competitors? That was one of my initiatives when I came to QVinci, just for my own benefit. I mean, QVinci is big enough, it already knows that. But as a sales leader, I want to know that, because I want to know the context and the detail behind what is it about our product that made you think we were unique, that made you think you needed to buy us.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to size that up from the standpoint of what are the challenges that we resolve? What are those common challenges that our ideal customer profile faces most days that we feel like there's a gap in the market that we can fill? And then what are the outcomes that we generally represent? And then finally, what are those proof points? If I'm a new company, I don't have maybe that much word of mouth in the street. I don't have this great brand that is easily recognizable. People think of it and they know that's what they do. I understand kind of what they're about. So you need your proof points. You need been there, done that with other customers, customer stories of we got this organization to buy our product. Here's the challenges that we solved for them. Here's the outcomes that we were able to drive. And, human beings have a lot of FOMO by nature, psychologically. So if I, Joe, in my capacity as vice president of sales at QVinci, hear that one of my competitors, vice president of sales, just adopted a technology that solved some pain points and got them some good outcomes and hit their target better, I'm going to want to take a call with that sales rep. All right, tell me what you got, right?
Yeah.
So you want to hit on key challenges you solve, outcomes you deliver, and then a proof point. Have you done it before with somebody else? And if you can make it targeted to someone's vertical or industry, then you've got a really good outreach campaign.
Mm-hmm. And are there any little industry secrets you can share with us about maybe sales? Like what's something people often miss, but that's really effective, or anything you can think of that maybe isn't getting enough attention, but has a really outsized return?
I'm sure there's a lot that I could think of, but two things come to mind that maybe the general population doesn't know the trick of the trade. And I don't think I'm giving away any trade secrets necessarily, but the first one is just 3 words, and that's tell me more. When you're trying to discover and run really good discovery, the best way to do that is to just make a command to your prospect to tell me more. You will learn so much about where their headspace is at and why challenges are challenging, why they want desired outcomes, just from those 3 words. So if you're ever stuck in sales in a conversation, you don't quite know where to take the discovery, tell me more is a really good way to do a lot of good stuff there. The next one, and I always thought that this was ubiquitous in sales, but the more I see, the more I know it's actually not as ubiquitous as I thought. And that's simply setting a next step in the sales process and making it be a calendar-based next step. And the reason that's so important is you can generate interest in a single call and get someone's interest, but oftentimes, little action might be taken from that call alone. Maybe send some follow-up resources via email, et cetera, and so forth. But what you really need to understand is, are we going to drive this closer to a sale? Can I take you from interest to action? And the best way to do that is to find a next step in that person's evaluation process. What is that next step for them? What do they need to do to get closer to making a decision, if that's where their head's at, if they're even in that decision-making mode? And let's set a calendar event, because the biggest competition in sales is not your competitors. It is what's called do nothing. And that is where you lose most of your deals to, is people doing nothing. So you want to set next steps to continue to drive the deal forward. Or if the prospect's not ready to drive the deal forward, reposition the time you were spending with them onto somebody else. Go find someone else that might have more capacity to buy your product or service.
Great. And let's say there is a smaller software company out there has a good projection for growth, but they're kind of just getting started. What advice would you have for them for getting together a good sales team, and like what's the highest leverage things they can do starting out?
Well, it can be sometimes as rudimentary as the compensation plan. If you don't have a compensation plan for your salespeople, you're not going to get the intended results. You need to ensure that the comp plan aligns with whatever results you're trying to achieve as a company. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen a comp plan, which is a comp plan. There is variable commissions and things like that, but it doesn't necessarily align to the company outcomes that they're trying to get to. Salespeople are very coin operated. They like to make money. And if you give them an incentive, more times than not, you'll get the result that you desire. So sometimes it's as rudimentary as starting at the comp plan. Does it align to the targets? I think having a playbook is really important. If you don't have a playbook whereby, you have defined stages and you want to qualify certain things at certain stages and bring someone through the value tree of selling. If you don't have any sort of a playbook, well, salespeople won't be selling your technology in a uniform way. They won't be selling your service in a uniform way. And at that point, you're totally dependent on, are they or are they not doing it in the way that we think is the most beneficial for the company? And then structure. Like I said, if you don't have folks with defined outcomes that are a piece of the total puzzle, that can be tricky if you're looking to scale, if you're looking to grow. I mean, sometimes when you're really small, a single salesperson can do it all. But as you scale and as you grow and as you actually need to hire multiple people, that's when you need to separate out your functions and look for different profiles of people to achieve different results that you're looking for.
Okay. And also curious, because AI has been a pretty big topic in many industries recently. Has that affected the way you approach sales or like company growth at all? Are there any tools that have started to come up, or maybe QVinci themselves are implementing AI that is pushing things?
Certainly. So I would call us a pretty AI forward organization. We've got certain things written into our code base from a product perspective that's really cool with the patents that we've got. But that notwithstanding, I think you're more curious about how we use it from a company and sales perspective. Yeah, I'll use it for simple things like trying to get data out of my CRM. We've got a CRM system which has some capability to tell me about my sales funnel and the health of it. But ChatGPT, Gemini are both really good resources to look at data and almost visualize it for you. With B2B sales specifically, you should really be using slides to convey your message. A prospect seeing an image or something to remember whatever message you're trying to convey can make a lot of difference. I am very bad at making slides. It is like my least favorite thing to do in sales. And you have to do that both internally to present your ideas to your company, to your team, but then externally. I use Gamma to produce slides. It's great. It's incredible how much it can do. Sometimes it's a little bit over the top, but it's good because you can kind of manipulate it and tell it. And then some of my sales team, they're using ChatGPT and Gemini to clean up their sales emails sometimes. I don't recommend having ChatGPT or Gemini writing your emails from scratch, but if you're someone who maybe you're typing a little bit too quickly for your own good, maybe you don't feel like you're using as professional language as you'd really want, maybe you're just a little bit woke up on the wrong side of the bed and a prospect rubs you the wrong way and you're trying to send a message, but you need to tone it down a little bit. Those are great resources to ensure that your emails are coming off professional to your prospects.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of companies starting to look into like AI agents that kind of automate a bit more of the process with like even, okay, finding leads, but then enriching and then replying and everything. I think replying can be a bit iffy depending on your business. Like if you have a lower ticket item, I think the risk is not very high of, replying a pretty generic follow-up message. But if you have high ticket items and you need to really establish relationship, I think it could get a little bit, maybe don't give full control to ChatGPT to manage your clients.
Yeah, you're right. There's some really interesting technologies out there that I have evaluated. I haven't implemented any yet at the very top of the funnel because that's where I think it's most appropriate is for those very top of funnel things.
Yeah.
But our marketing team, I know, uses AI to generate their subject headers for writing marketing emails and for helping improve our blog posts and all that stuff. So AI is only going to become more and more of not a nice to have, but a necessary part of running an efficient sales organization. Kind of like how support agents have become more and more percentage that are AI driven. I don't think we're anywhere near, I don't think my lifetime salespeople will be replaced by AI. I could eat my own sock with that.
I think you're right,
statement.
because I think things are going more in the direction of human connection and real experience, because the more you have AI and generated content, you feel fluff online. Like you'll see a LinkedIn post, you're like, that literally sounds like nothing. I have no idea what the point of that even was. Some of it is valuable when the person uses AI to help them with their own idea. But I think there's so much fake stuff out there that having the real connection, like I actually think moving forward, people will want in-person sales reps even more. Sales reps that know about their daughter's soccer game the other week, like building those relationships, I think is only going to be more valuable and help companies, because it's not as scalable, and I think it's more valuable in the long term.
I couldn't agree more. It's a force multiplier. It should increase the utility of any given sales reps to produce more than they otherwise could because it can make them more efficient. But I don't think we're headed towards, at least not in my lifetime, AI completely replacing the need for sales reps. Maybe with super small transactions, people can be confident buying, a $1,000 per year technology via interacting with AI. That I totally see, and that's already happening from an e-commerce perspective. But making $100,000 decision, a $500,000 decision, I think a human needs to be involved. I think people just feel more comfortable working with a human and much less comfortable working through a bot.
For sure. And how do you guys approach keeping strong relationships with clients? I guess it depends on the business, but I assume you have some sort of process in place for keeping like good relationships with clients. I guess it helps with retention as well. Do you have any specific strategies for that?
Yeah, and I mean, we have a whole team that does that. My counterpart on the account management side of the house, his name is Tony Laurel. He manages a support team, implementation, and customer success. And that's critical, right? We need to ensure that our customers are happy. You always want to reduce your churn rate in SaaS, and you want to work towards a positive NRR, net retention revenue, that's over 100%. So you want to be thinking about what things do my clients need as their needs evolve over time, and being able to give that to them such that you can monetize that account more and have that positive NRR and have your customer base be an appreciating asset that is just another way to grow as an organization. So, I mean, there's things that sales reps will like to do with customers because oftentimes selling a product at our average contract value, a lot of organizations will want to refer. They'll say, hey, can you hook me up with someone who is using your technology currently that looks similar to how I look as a company? And so we want to have quick responses from a large swath of our customers to be able to talk to them. So we want to keep them happy too. And sometimes that, comes in the form of just constantly checking in and ensuring they're happy. Other times that comes in the form of, contractual breaks and giving them a break in whatever the service cost is for them to act as an advocate for your technology. So there's a lot of ways, but I think it's imperative that you keep your customers happy and that they're delighted by your service.
Yeah. So what's next for QVinci in 2025? Any big goals, and how do you guys plan to attack those?
There's a lot of big goals. We've got some real growth objectives to hit in this year. This is really let's call it the prove it year for our sales team to be able to say, hey, this investment is now working out. I'm very confident it will, very confident in our team that we've hired. I've got no doubt that it will, but a lot of initiatives that we need to hit. I told you about a partner program. I think we do need to stand up a partnership program in which we've got partners that can send us referrals and eventually probably resell our technology to add to our distribution channels, to add to the ways in which we monetize our service. There's a lot that we want to do with our customers to add different products and bundles so that we can grow the customer base and give them more of what they're looking for. We've got a lot going on in dev right now to improve our product significantly that, of course, I can't talk about exactly those things here, but there's quite a bit that we want to do to make our product even stickier, even more difficult to say no to. So the initiatives are a ton. It's going to be about execution at the end of the day. Can everyone execute and do their role? And if everyone knows their role, knows what the expectation is of their role, and goes out and executes and commits to getting just 1% better every day at their craft, whatever it is, there's no way that we won't be successful.
Yeah.
Is what I've found at organizations. So it's going to be a fun 2025. I'm personally very excited for it. I'm extraordinarily happy with my decision to join QVinci. And I think there is no ceiling to what QVinci can do, just given how strong a product it is, how strong our team is here. And the fact that our customers are generally very, very happy and like our service. And that's a great starting point.
And for anyone who wants to reach out or is maybe interested in learning a bit more about QVinci, where can they go?
So they can go to QVinci.com. We are going to be releasing a new website relatively soon. Can't say exactly when, but it'll look very different tomorrow than it does today. So you can always go to QVinci.com. You can book a call with my sales team right online, schedule something with them. You can do a free trial of our software. You can see a tailored demonstration, however it is that you want to evaluate technology. And of course, my LinkedIn is available. Joe Barbano, again, Senior Vice President of Sales at QVinci. You can get in touch with me if you got a partnership opportunity or if you just want to learn more about our service. We're always happy to talk to folks that might be interested and learn more about QVinci.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure and I learned a lot.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure as well. Thank you, Christina.